The Sarva Dharma of Swami's message just clicked right in with the philosophy of, sort of how our family practiced.
In the hall, he would come there amidst all of us, and we would say Brahmarpanam together as a huge, like, how many students were there together? And in front of the Divine Master himself saying Brahmarpanam, he would partake a little bit of food and he would walk amongst the students.
Sai Ram, dear listeners, welcome to Sai Soul 100. Our guests today are sisters Anjali Mani and Sandhya Nankani, who are actually biological sisters. Sai Ram, sister Anjali and Sandhya, welcome to Sai Soul 100.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Thank you for joining Sai Soul 100. Please share your story.
Thank you for inviting us. We are sisters and our stories are very much intertwined as well as separate. And so we thought it would be a wonderful opportunity, thanks to Swami, for bringing us together to share our story. We love your podcast. I'm the younger sister, and we were both fortunate to be born into a family that already knew Swami. We called him Baba as children, so I'll probably switch between the two as we're talking. And Baba was just this large presence in our lives from the time of our birth. Our mother actually first met Baba in Bombay. Her family had moved to Bombay from Morocco in the late 60s, and that's where she grew up. And a neighbor told them that he was coming to Dharamkshetra and shared with them about his leelas and his divinity, and they were very drawn and immediately went to see him. And that began sort of our family's relationship with knowing Swami, visiting Parthi. And then my dad had gone to India and then went on his own as well. This I recently learned. And then, as our parents, they were both in the path of going to Parthi after their wedding, so on and so forth. So we were born, and for us it was Sai Ram. It was Vibhuti was the first medicine. We grew up in Ghana in West Africa, and that's where we were born, and that's where our father was also born. And just for context, I mentioned our mother was born in Morocco, so we have a very international family. And our particular community that we come from is Sindhi. Sindhi Hindu families practice, I would call, a very syncretic faith, where you have, your altar, your family altar, or your home altar, or the temples have obviously all the Hindu deities that we're familiar with, Ganesha and Lakshmi and Saraswati, and also the Sikh gurus, and most Sindhi homes also have the Guru Granth Sahib, and then also Sufi saints and Sufi kalam. So it's a very, so the Sarva Dharma of Swami's message just kind of like, I guess, just clicked right in with the philosophy of, sort of how our family practiced. I just want to say, like, growing up, even we had Bal, because our teacher, it's like Swami sent us a teacher who was Parsi. You know what I mean? And they were practicing Parsis, but also Sai devotees. And it never felt to us like there was any disjointedness. It was just the pure message of his unity and diversity. We were so gifted to be exposed to that from a very young age. And I think it has really shaped how we see spirituality and religion, but also the world. And that's just one of the biggest gifts I feel just so immensely grateful for. Went, I think, as very young children to Parthi. So I think probably, I don't know if Anjali went earlier than me, but my first visit, I'm told, which I don't remember, was when we were 2. And we were there our mom took us with our Masi, who was living in India at the time, and another friend from Bangalore with her daughter. And while we were there,
what is Masi? Can you explain Masi?
oh, sure. My mom's sister. So we went for, I think, about a week to 2 weeks. And while we were there, it was, this was 1976. So it was just sands. And, we were in the ashram. Apparently, we all slept in one room and, just would go to darshan. And there weren't tons of people as there were in the later days. And the story that's told in our family is that, Baba would come and walk by, and you could, touch his feet pretty easily. And apparently, as a kid, I was very eager to do that and excited. And I kept saying, "I want to touch your feet." I seemed to that's how the story goes. And also, I would repeatedly ask him for interview, and I would say, "Baba, interview, Baba, interview." So. This kept going on for the whole time that we were there. And apparently one early morning in my sleep, I said, "Baba, interview." And that day when we went, I said it again in person, and he did call us in. And he called just the three of us. We were with a group, as I shared, but he just called our mother, Anjali, and myself. And that for our mom was a very special experience to be in a group with other devotees and to have the blessings given to us as children. So, Anjali, you want to talk about moving here?
I think that, we're coming at a very tender age, pre-adolescence, tweens, and at the same time, almost kind of culture shock. So assimilation, trying to get used to a new country, all of that. And it, I think having a connection, to a center back then and having connection to the annual retreats that we used to go to and forming friendships that stayed with us. A lot of the friendships that we had are the ones that are still part of our friend group into adulthood. All of those things were part of our childhood growing up, right? Our teens growing up, and then also being part of a young adult group, right? Getting using his teachings, taking his teachings, and how do you apply it on a practical level? So that shaped us. It shaped us into it strengthened our values, right? But it also strengthened our faith in him on many levels. So the idea of forming these connections, and it would be so sad when we would leave. We'd be like, okay, when do we meet again? And we used to drag our parents. Okay, the next time we meet would be Akan Bhajan. So our parents would have to drive really far out so that we could get and meet our friends who we had formed friendships with from the retreat, right? So
Yeah.
that was our childhood. That was our teen years growing up. And if we didn't have that, I don't know who we would be or how we would be today. I think it saved us from a lot. And it helped us get through adolescence, young adulthood, entering into college. Every single person always has a role to play. It doesn't matter how small the role is, but you always have a role to play. And you always feel like you're something larger and you feel like you've contributed in your own way. And nobody ever felt left out. That's from my recollection. It was a beautiful synergy of people coming together. Fast forward,
Yeah.
as we move into, I think I was in my second year in college, and Sandhya had just started college, or were you in high school still? Oh yeah,
I was,
you were a senior in high school.
yeah, I was in my last 2 months of high school. So I took
Okay.
off. Mhm.
Okay. So fast forward to that, and we were part of, a strong young adult group at that time, and uh, Auntie Sunita Vadwani reached out to us and a whole bunch of other girls and said there's an opportunity to attend Swami's summer courses on Indian culture and spirituality in Vrindavan. This was 1992. And we didn't realize what was in store for us. This is the first time that it was open to outside of anybody outside of India, I guess. I think so.
Yeah.
Um,
It was basically the orientation, so to speak, equivalent for the Brindavan, Puttaparthi, and Anantapur students before they started the new school year. And actually, Swami hadn't done it in a number of years, and he had resumed it that year. So, and it was also the first year that, for some reason, he had agreed that a group of girls and boys, did the boys go that year or they went the next year?
they went the next year, I think.
Yeah. I think they were supposed to go that year, but it got canceled for some reason, but we were allowed to go. And it was from, I found my badge. So it was from 20th May to 1st June, 1992. And it says on it, Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning Summer School student. So I'll, I found it this morning and I felt like I should,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
So we were about 15 girls, I think,
yeah.
right? We were 15 girls from all, some of them we knew, some of them we didn't. We got there, and when we arrived, we got to Whitefield and we arrived. Um, I didn't know, or we didn't realize that we actually had to get permission from Swami, even though he opened up the invitation, that we actually had to get permission from Swami to get the passes to attend the summer courses. So he had to actually give it to us. And on my head, I said I was confused. But you called us. Why is this so? Why are we? Why are you making us go through this when you said that we could come and nobody gets here without you? So what is going on? And we couldn't stay in the ashram at that time because we didn't have passes. So
They
we
didn't let
stayed
us.
outside of we stayed in Whitefield, but not inside the ashram. We were at the glass factory, and we stayed there. And it was literally a couple of days of ultimate suspense, because we had no clue whether we could either, it was either like he may give it to us or he may not. And if you're prepared, you're just going to have to be here for the next, we have our ticket booked, so you can just go to darshan every day and this is what it will be. Or, he may decide that he's going to give it to you. So that, I think it was the next day, or maybe I'm not sure if it was the first day or the next day after that. He came in my dream and he said to me, he said, "You think that whatever you want, Swami will give you. Well, you have to work hard for what you want. Don't take Swami for granted." I was in shock. I was like, "Oh my God, what does he want me to, what do you want me to do?" I had to tell everybody that dream. And then Auntie Sunita said, "Okay, this means that we all have to be united in our thought, word, and deed. We have to be a team. And he expects certain conduct from us and certain expects us to he wants to see if we can make it through. And it's not an easy process. It's hot. It's May. And extremely, it's a lot of tapasya sitting. After a couple of days, he came to us during darshan. He smiled at us and he called us gang. And we were happy, but we didn't realize what he meant by that. That's not a good thing, technically, right? Um, but then that also showed to us that, we have work to do. And that's why we were there, right? We had a lot of inner working to do, and we had to learn um, to be what he calls a spiritual warrior, right? And be worthy of his grace. So we did get he was gracious enough to give us the passes. And
On day 4.
yeah, it was 4 days of that. It was very hard.
I just
Um,
want to add, we had to walk most mornings early to darshan. It was probably a little over half a mile to a mile from the glass factory where we were staying to the ashram in our saris. Um, not knowing, in a straight line. Like there was a lot of things of discipline as Indian American kids that we had to learn, or American, we were a mixed group. The toilets broke at the glass factory on day 2, so we had to go in the coconut fields in the dark. Like there were these physical challenges. It was like boot camp. But then it was like, do you want this? And then we're all like, yeah, we're here for this. We'll keep going. There was, the food was spicy beyond what we were used to. And there's a rule of, not wasting food at the ashram. And so whatever we would get, we had to finish. And as a team, we had to help each other, because those who were used to it and had the palates developed enough to tolerate the spice level sometimes would say, okay, I'll finish your food for you. So that friendship and that community and that teamwork really those are life lessons, right? They just never leave you. I mean, we had to sort of build that energy as a group even before we could get the passes, and then continue for the next 10 days with that.
And I want to add, just, he has this quote. He says, it is like baking a cake. I stir, I knead, I pound, I twist, I bake you, I drown you in tears, I scorch you in sobs, I make you sweat and crisp, I make you sweet and crisp, an offering worthy of God. So that's basically that. Those couple of days, those 4 days, I feel like when I think about it, we just went through all of that. And then he was the most loving, um, uh, just so much love after that. And the way days went were, it was in the morning, we would have a lecturer from the school, and it would be different topics. So it was everything on like Indian culture and spirituality. So for us, I love that part, because it really taught us the true um meaning of scriptures, that and true meaning of the Vedas. We just were learning and absorbing so much. Swami would speak every evening, and give a discourse, and we would be taking notes copiously. He would, and then he would end with a bhajan, and then they, and we all love bhajans. So listening to bhajans, having the uh, the students themselves put on musical performances for him, and they would have classical performers like we see now in Bharti, right? How they had special people coming and performing. We were exposed to that, which was so loving, and so being able to be part of it. When we would go to eat, in the hall, he would come there amidst all of us, and um, we would say Brahmarpanam together as a huge, like, how many students were there together, and in
All the
front of
girls.
the divine master himself saying Brahmarpanam. He would partake a little bit of food, and he would walk amongst the students. So it was, you know I don't have words right now, but it just was amazing. Is not even what we can say. It's an understatement. It was unreal on so many levels, right? Sandhya, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add in terms of the daily schedule. I've heard other episodes where students who attended Swami's college often refer to summer course, but I don't know. For us, I don't think we recognized what the day would feel like. And like Anjali said, I was going through my notes this morning and I found a little thing. It was like 8 to 10 a.m. student and faculty talks. And then um, after that, you would go and you'd go back to your room and you'd have to wash your clothes, we all slept in one room on sleeping bags. So we'd have to, like take bucket baths. We would then, get organized, clean our room, go to the dining hall for lunch. We'd get maybe an hour or so to rest. It was really hot. It's summer. So then we would rest a little bit, and then 2 to 3, they had all kinds of different formats of programs, debate, symposium, lectures, and then in the evenings, Swami would speak, as Anjali said. It was always, every day was very different in terms of the content. So we were constantly stimulated, but also we didn't realize, I mean, we were taking notes. We got this notebook and we really filled it up. But did we take an exam the first year?
Yes,
we had an exam to take at the end, and we did not know that. So that was really stressful also. So I feel like Swami gave us 2 exams. He was like, first, if you want to be my student, here's your entrance exam, right? And then don't take this for granted. I'm going to check you at the end to make sure you were paying attention. And we were all at really kind of, college students, or I was one of the youngest. I was about to start college, and then there was one other girl who was a year younger than me. But I think we're all at these milestone moments in our lives where, as we go forward, we would have so many decisions to make, right? About our careers, fine, education, fine, but life, you have all these decision points in life about how you live your life. And I think, having this satsang, constant exposure, but also having Swami, like every speech he would call us embodiments of love, right? When you're called that, even if you don't feel like that, you feel like you can be that. You have the potential for that. And it's such love, right, that you're receiving, that it's overwhelming. And it's kind of like it comes, you have it, and then you're not even sure where it will go, right? But it is with you. And I think I was also thinking about just some of the things that, like the key topics that came up. I just jotted down a few this morning as I was going through my notes. Like one was, that education is for life, not just to make a living, right? Just this idea that and we were all students, that to remind us, yes, you are in college and you live in America, but it's not just about getting a degree so that you can make a living, but to have a life. And this concept of unity between thought, word, and deed, which is literally a lifelong journey of learning, right, for all of us, but to have that foundational given to us. And then Swami always speaks about sealing on desires, but he talked about it in so many different ways, and then gave us examples from scriptures. And I think spirituality is not just bhajans, but broad-mindedness. That was one of the things that he said in one of his first lectures. Live life like a lion, no fear. Like this idea of like not having fear in your life was, I think, just this very powerful lesson to give us as young people. And then in the first lecture, he said, if man wants wisdom, I just went through the first lecture for today, and I felt like this stood out as well. If man wants wisdom, he needs to get a healthy body, sense control, and control of the mind, like these 3 things. And these were mapped out over those 10 days. And, for me as a kid who always wanted interview and grew up with the story of like, oh, you asked Baba for interview and he gave it to you, literally through my teen years, every time we'd go to Parthi, the only refrain in my head was Baba interviewed. I feel like I'd been like trained for that, right? I was like, oh, I asked for it once, I can just get it again. But of course, we never got interview in that way again in our lifetimes with Swami. But that 2 weeks was like an extended interview, right? Because it was almost like here it is for you all young people, and what does it mean to receive this as a young person? And then to be 50 and then be able to go back to it and say, okay, what does this mean for me now at this point in my life versus then, you know? So this is a real gift to be able to like kind of like draw that out of the box, you know? So I have to thank you. The saris story, maybe you is from the next year. Oh no, it's the same
No,
year.
this is 1992. And
You
then
wanted
when we
to,
went, just
yeah.
that too, we didn't know whether we were going to get the saris. That was also another test. We had to wait. Um, so he gave this, if you see when we go for big occasions, if you've been to Bharti, when Swami was in his physical presence and when there were big occasions, he would always give out. He's always giving out stuff, right? Prasads and saris to the Anandpur students. And so at the end of the summer courses, he gave saris to the Anandpur students. And we were not sure whether we were going to get them, and that also kept us in suspense. He said okay last minute, until the very last minute, and each of us were able to. I mean, when you think about it, it's like it happened in a flash, right? We just were standing in line, and we're standing in front of him. We're all pleading. We're seeing every student go by, and we're just standing there on the sideline, saying, "Please call us, please call us," you know. And then he says, "Okay," and each of us goes up one by one, and he gives it to us, with his own hands, which is surreal, honestly, because you have to take it all in, and you don't really, before you know it, you're back at the back of the line, and it hasn't happened. Like it just happened so fast. So it's almost like, you came here, and now you get to go back with something that's going to remind me of you. I'm giving you a going away gift, right? And that's how Swami always has been. Even when we went the second year when we went, everybody gets to take a picture with him, and that we were in awe, just absolutely. It's so nice to be able to look at it every now and then, like, because I have it up in my room next to me, and I'm like, I can't believe this happened. It's utter disbelief, when you see that. Um, and at the end of the second time when we went, he said to us, "Good girls." So we passed the test. And that for me, that for both of us, when we think about it, we're like, okay, all right, we are worthy of your love now. Um, and there's a lot of stuff that during that time when we were um in the summer courses listening, like Sandhya mentioned, that we were all at different stages in our lives, right? Between college, either working or end of high school. So it's a very crucial time for that age group. Um, for me personally, I felt like if I had a question, I know I wouldn't be able to go to him physically, like, get an actual interview, but he managed to answer questions that we needed answers to, in the lectures. And I was talking to Sandhya about it the other day. We've, like I said, we've come like 30 years later, and so much has happened in each of our own lives, right? Personal lives. There's so many different challenges that have happened in between that time. We are different people than we were back then, but that experience has been the training ground to deal with all these experiences that we had, or these challenges that have come up. Because if we didn't have that, I don't know where either one of us would be. I think our relationship has strengthened as a result of that, as sisters, our children, making sure that they will never see him physically. They hear of stories, but to have that same experience as us, that we know that won't happen. But when we see them excited about bhajans, that it says, okay, Swami, you're taking care of them, right? that for me is everything, right? Or knowing that he, that there's that one bhajan that listen to my heart song, and it says, I will never forget thee and I will never forsake thee. That was coming into my mind after we had our initial conversation. It just kept coming, and that was his message to me, I think, on so many levels. He was like, you may forget me, but I'm here. I've always been here. I'm always with you, and I will never ever forget you. You just have to learn how to hold my hand and remember that I'm always with you. Because I never leave. And he hasn't, right? If you think about it, he's never left. He's always been with us since we were kids. So I don't know if you want to add anything more, Sandhya.
Yeah, I was just thinking about so after we left summer course, we had to write these essays for a reunion that we had, and we found all the essay. Well, Anjali had them, so I reread my essays, other group mates' essays, and I had forgotten this experience that I had. So I had to leave the group early, actually. They still all stayed behind in India because they were on college break. I was a high school student, and I was really, really sad and miserable that I had to leave. The date ended because I had to go back for my college, my high school graduation, and last few weeks of school and so on. And when I was leaving, our group leader Sunita Auntie said, just tell Swami to go with you, and tell him just the seat next to me on the plane, like let it be empty. That's your seat. And so I was like, okay, sure. And so I did say that, and I prayed for that, and the entire journey home um, from Bangalore to Bombay to New York to whatever stopover, my seats were empty, and I had forgotten about that. And reading that all these years later just reminded me that it's like the smallest prayer. When that smallest prayer is heard, we don't always remember it, right? We say, oh, that's so cool, that's so amazing, and then we forget. But when we write it down somewhere and we come back to it years later, that is the moment where your faith really is rebuilt over and over again, right? We are human beings and we forget, and we have faith, but I think it's that, like, oh, I heard that tiniest little wish. It's like the big things we always remember. It's those small things. And yeah, it was just very moving for me to find that all these years later. So thank you, Anjali, for finding the essays.
You're welcome.
Sairam, Sister Anjali, and Sister Sandhya. What a beautiful journey that Swami has blessed both of you to have, starting from when you were children, being raised in Swami's fold, but lifetime of such rich experiences. You have gone through difficult times and all of those things along the journey, but reminiscing over these rich experiences with Swami is just a true blessing. Sandhya, thank you for asking for interview with Swami. Throughout your life, you seem to be getting it in some sort of way. It's such a beautiful experience. And then I wanted to kind of touch up on your journey as young adults or teenagers in a new country, finding home in other young adults in the Sai fold. And your experiences at the center and the retreat, because those experiences are doable for our future generations, right? It's something, it's so powerful. You powerfully narrated the impact of those experiences where there's a place for everybody at the center and at the retreat. And as a collective community, there's a place for everybody. And we collectively focus on Swami and do his work. And I think that's a wonderful realization that comes out of from your experiences as teenagers. you're not speaking as parents for your children. You're speaking from your own first-hand experience. And I think that's a wonderful reminder for all of the teenagers and young adults who are going through this, that that community is there. We just need to make sure that we are part of it. Right. And then going to summer showers, yes, you had 3 tests. First of all, the entrance exam, right? Swami basically not making it easy for you to get the pass. And I think that's where the churning and the contemplation, what is the true meaning of unity? What is Swami looking for? What is it that Swami is looking for? What is meant by unity? Looking out for each other, even helping each other complete food or supporting each other, looking out for each other, that true sense of community, true sense of unity. And also purity. You're probably able to purify your mind a little. Swami is trying to get rid of those dusts in all of us, so that when you do get the pass and enter the summer courses, you're in a place to absorb it. Right? Otherwise, can you imagine if you didn't have that test and you go into the summer course? I don't think you would have gotten as much experience out of it as the chiseling that happened beforehand. And then, of course, exams at the end, that may be physical exams, but I think I heard you say at the end, ultimate passing of the exam is, are we worthy of his love? Right? Doesn't come just at the end of your summer course, but just in general, as living our everyday life, living Swami's teachings in our everyday life. Are we doing what we can to be worthy of his love? His love is always there, but are we doing what we can do? Right? So such beautiful, beautiful journey. And I just love the fact that you actually have your notes and your books with you. That first-hand experience for you to refer back to. I mean, most of us will go and pull up 1992 Summer Showers text, the book, and we will open it and read a paragraph or two. You have your own book at hand that you can open up and read and inspire yourself. And a couple of things that you had mentioned, which is so powerful, that you're reading from the original, is education is for life, not for living. And then living life like a lion with no fear. I mean, I think that's just the message that all of us need, including all the teenagers and young adults who are listening to this satsang. So Sister Sandhya, Sister Anjali, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Very grateful.
Thank you.
I add one thing that I just remembered. I remember in one of his discourses, Swami said, with your little tiny pinky finger, you could also lift a mountain with self-confidence and willpower. And I feel like for young people, that, I mean, as a young person, hearing that made a big impact on building my self-confidence and self-will. So that you just reminded me of that by rereading those few lines.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for taking the time to share all of this.
Thank you.
Sairam, thank
Sairam.
you.
Sairam, dear listeners. Thank you for listening to Sai Soul 100 with Sisters Sandhya and Anjali. I'm Prabha Swaminathan. Until next time, Jai Sai Ram.